folks, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video all about my cruelty-free, vegan and mostly natural, well I say mostly natural because everybody has different ideas of what natural means. I'm talking about more green beauty brands, just smaller indie brands. You know, my skin is normal so I don't get too oily. I do find with most green makeup products they do tend to break down after like the 3-hour mark in general. They're just not as long lasting on the skin. So if you want to see my more conventional makeup version of this, then I will link that video for you. Full coverage and glowy makeup that I really like. That one lasts a little bit longer on the skin. But yes, if you're interested in this video then obviously carry on watching it. So first off, I do usually use a moisturiser or a face balm in the morning, so that's why my skin is a little bit shiny. But I've been loving the Daydream Mineral Primer by Coola. This has got SPF 30 in it, it's vegan, cruelty-free, logical harmony certified, and it is, like the name suggests, a mineral sunscreen as opposed to a chemical sunscreen, so it's a bit more gentle on the skin for me personally. It does leave, as you can see, it is quite white. I did put quite a lot on today, so yeah, bear in mind you don't need that much. But this blurs the skin really nicely but doesn't clog pores up, if you know what I mean. You know, some like silicone based primers can just be a bit thick. Like they're fine on certain areas of the face, like around the T-zone. I can understand why you'd want a bit of a thicker sort of benefit professional kind of product. But all over the face, I think this is a really lovely option for blurring the skin slightly, prepping the face really nicely for foundation or concealer. But even on its own, it's quite nice. Like it's just like a nice blurring product, although you do get the white cast. It's not like an extreme white cast, I've definitely had worse. But another primer, if you want something that's got SPF in, that's natural, another more sort of illuminating primer, or just kind of like, it's more moisturising than it is blurring. I like the Hint Beauty Sun Prep Primer. That is SPF 25 and it's very nice and it smells really good, but I'm pretty sure it's only got zinc oxide in, or it's only got titanium dioxide in, one of the two. I don't think it's got both in, whereas this one does. I do sometimes use this Suntegrity Natural Moisturising Face Sunscreen, or sometimes I'll layer the two up. Like if my skin's quite dry, I'll probably go in with the Suntegrity first and then pop this on top. You can't double up on SPF. If you put like SPF 30 and SPF 30 together, it doesn't make 60, but it just means that if you've missed any areas, gives you a bit of extra coverage, you know. Also sometimes for a base I've been using, this is a very recent addition, but this is the Duval's Argan Bronzing Oil. So I might just put a little bit of this on top. I do leave my sunscreen or like my primer to kind of set a bit. I usually go on and do my brows just whilst I let it sit on the skin. But this bronzing oil is really nice and it seems to kind of put back the colour into my skin after the sun cream has kind of made me look a little bit white. The first ingredient is argan oil, and then it's also got squalane in and silica. So that's the first 3 ingredients, and I think the silica in it just again gives that sort of blurring effect to the skin. It's not overly oily. I think it makes a lovely holiday product, or when you don't really want to wear makeup but you want to give your skin a bit of a bronzed look. Moving on to coverage, so my 2 favourite green beauty foundations to date are the Perez Oat Milk Foundation. Probably heard me talk about this a million times. I've got the shade Honey and I've got a full video on this. It is a very thick, not thick but like creamy. It's not a traditional liquid foundation in terms of, it is a liquid but it's a very thick liquid. Really good coverage and sits nicely on my skin. It does kind of break up after like 4 or 5 hours, but I find most natural makeup does start to wear away after the 3-hour mark for me, but that's just my experience. I'm actually going to mix it with the Nui Berlin Natural Liquid Foundation. So this one, if you've got oily skin and you're after a natural foundation, I'd probably recommend this one over the Perez one, just because it sets down. It gives a kind of like soft focus semi-matte finish. Like it's not matte at all, it's not matte or flat, but it does kind of set, whereas the Perez one doesn't set. I'd say that the Oat Milk Foundation has a little bit more coverage, but the Nui Foundation you can still build to be like a medium coverage. Neither of them are going to block out everything, and I apply both of these with my hands because I just find that's how it applies best. Sometimes I'll go with a sponge on top to kind of blend it out a little bit more and buff it into the skin, but this is, as you can see, I've got it on this side of my face but I haven't got it on this side of my face. When maybe you want to give your skin a break from conventional foundations that maybe don't have as nourishing ingredients in them, I'd recommend these 2. Moving on to concealer, so I've talked about this Han Cosmetics concealer before. This is their all natural concealer in the shade Fair Light. Very good coverage, but it is very dewy, exceptionally dewy. I've never tried a concealer that is as dewy as this. It just doesn't really set. So if you've got really oily skin and your makeup tends to slip and slide everywhere, I don't know if this is for you, but I do find it's the most full coverage I've found a green beauty concealer to be. But like, for example, when I put it around my nose to kind of block out the redness there, say if I've got hay fever or something, if I blow my nose, even if I set it with powder, if I blow my nose, there will be product that comes off on the tissue. This smells like lavender. It smells really, really lovely and natural. When I use this, I have to take a small kind of like blending brush, like eye blending brush, and take my powder right into the inner corner here underneath the eye, otherwise it does tend to crease. I do really, really like this concealer, but I always like to try and give a well-rounded review when I mention it, because I don't think it would work for everybody, but I do personally quite like it. If it just set a little bit more, I feel like it would be incredible, but as it is, it's dewy. Dewy as heck. And I've also been using the Tropic Illuma. This is one of their new concealers actually, and it's kind of like the Touche Eclat, but like a vegan and cruelty-free and more natural version. So I'll just pop a tiny little bit of this. If you don't know what the Touche Eclat is, it's quite a cult classic product from YSL. I actually didn't really rate it that much. I got it when I used to work at John Lewis. I used to get makeup 25% off, so I did buy it because it regularly is quite expensive. I mean, even with 25% off it's quite expensive, but I just didn't really find it did that much. Like, it doesn't give that much coverage, and it does illuminate a little bit, but not like noticeably so. Whereas this I feel like gives a little bit more coverage. I just prefer it a little bit more. I've got mine in the shade Latte, and as you can see it's a very, very pale shade. I'm going to set my face, but first I'm going to go in with a liquid highlighter. So this one is by Seraphine Botanicals. I love this stuff. It is their Love and Light highlighter cream. Looking at it, I wouldn't have thought I'd like it because it's kind of golden but with like a green reflect to it. It's not holographic, but it's almost holographic, you know, it's got a slight shift to it. But actually it's really nice and subtle. It's like a kind of wet look highlight but with a bit of goldenness to it, if that makes any sense. Blends in nicely, and if I'm going to go for a natural highlight, I love this one. I do have a powder highlight to show you as well. But yeah, liquid highlight, that's my fave. I don't know where you can get it in the UK. I think it's mainly a US based brand. And moving on to powder. So this powder is insane. I used to kind of use the Satin Matte Foundation by Illuma Pure to kind of set my, add a little bit more coverage but also slightly set my skin. But this, because it's a satin matte, not a matte foundation, it doesn't really stop oils, you know, coming through. It doesn't really set the face, it more just kind of adds a little bit of coverage. I've got mine in the shade Warm too, but it is a little bit dark, and I know that if you like mineral foundations, this might be for you because I know a lot of people like it, but I tend to like liquid foundations and then set them with a powder. Now this powder is very kind of like dusty, I don't know if you can see that, but the product goes everywhere. The packaging is not my favourite because you have to kind of tap it out into the lid and then go ahead and use it, which is like not the end of the world, you know. But I would prefer if it had a little kind of, what they called sieve, a little sieve net. This RMS Beauty Unpowder is mainly just silica, so it's very similar to the Bamboo Blur Powder by 100% Pure. It's really nice and blurring, prolongs the wear of my makeup really nicely. Powder products go on top of it really well. This is one of my favourite recent discoveries. It goes on really, really smoothly. It blurs the skin a little bit, it doesn't feel heavy, it never oxidizes on me. I use it in combination with a brush. I don't think I've tried it with a sponge actually, but I don't know if that would work. It still kind of lets the glow of like the liquid highlighter shine through without not stopping oils, if you know what I mean. My favourite natural blush, now this was hard because I love this Pixie palette, but I don't really know how technically natural Pixie is. So when I don't use that one, I do like using the Antonym blush. This is the Baked Blush in the shade Rose. Comes in this lovely Bamboo Compact, and it's a really pretty nude shade, so I'm just going to pop some of this on the apples of my cheeks. Like, it's pigmented enough, but it's hard to go overboard with, so if you're pale, I think this is a great shade. Formula's really nice and smooth. Big fan of that. And then for bronzer, I mean, my favourite contour is the Lolo Sculpt and Glow, or Sculpt and Contour duo. This is what it looks like. I've gotten good use out of this. I tend to mix the highlighter and the bronzer together. The powder formula is really, really smooth. The highlighter also works amazingly well on its own. Lolo do a individual highlighter, which is absolutely stunning. If you're after a natural highlighter, definitely head to Lolo. If you can't get hold of Root, which I know Root Pretty is a brand in the US, the products seem amazing, but if you can't get hold of them if you're in the UK or elsewhere in the world, I do recommend the Lolo highlighters. Another product from the Lolo that I love is their bronzer. This is their Miami Beach bronzer. If you've got pale skin, this is like one of the best bronzers out there. It's a really nice satin finish, looks very natural, really hard to go overboard again, but it's pigmented enough. If you are deeper skin, they do a couple of different variations. I don't know how deep they go actually. I'm gonna put a bit of gloss on. My lips are so dry at the moment. Another nice bronzer I wanted to mention is by Tropic. They do a, so this comes in a cardboard packet, but they do a refillable packet that you can customise to your perfect different shades. This is the bronzer which matches my skin best, and it is a really, really smooth, slightly more golden as opposed to the warmth of the Miami Beach bronzer, but they are pretty similar. But yeah, this is another option if you didn't want to purchase Lily Lolo and you wanted to get a little compact. They do these compacts that are about this big, and you can get a couple of eyeshadows, a highlighter, a bronzer all in one palette and customise it to your exact shading, so that might be a good option. They are also cruelty-free and vegan entirely. And then last but not least, I set my face. So this is the Trilogy Hydrating Mist Toner, and I mean I sometimes use the Evolve Daily Defense Mist, I use whatever I've got on hand, but yeah, I'll just take a toner, spritz my face to kind of set it, and that is pretty much it. I'm just going to go away and quickly finish the rest of my makeup and then I'll be back. And there we have it. This is the final product, my glowy full coverage foundation routine or base routine using more natural products. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to subscribe, please do, and hopefully I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!